And we are live. I think we're live. Hang on.
Yeah, it says live on Facebook.
Does it?
Yeah.
Cool. We are. So let me just knock that down there. Okay, I'm going to put it on speaker view. And there we are. So good afternoon, everybody. And welcome to Economy Will Talk live via Zoom, virtual meeting room, and we are live on Facebook. So if you've never been to a Economy Will Talk before, you now have, because we've taken it online. So you're very, very welcome. And I'm blessed and privileged today to be chatting to my good pal and my client, Gabrielle Collins, who I just was thinking about her this morning. And I said, this lady has the courage of a lion. She has been through so much, and yet she faces every circumstances head on with amazing courage. But I'm going to let her share her story with you guys, and then we will take questions and answers right at the end from our guests here in the meeting room on Zoom. So Gabrielle, over to you. Yes. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself, your business, who you are, tell everybody.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Gabrielle. My business is called Turning Point Coaching and Counselling. I live in Drogheda and I work with people who have been sexually abused, domestic violence, anxiety, all this kind of stuff, relationship issues, self issues, really. And I'm just doing that about maybe a year and a half. Before that, I didn't tell anybody what I did do, but I kept that quiet for a lot of years and I didn't have the courage. That was my issue. I didn't have the courage to come out and say what I did. So that's what I do. And courage is something that we all need at times, you know, because none of us is ever going to go through life without something happening that we need courage to deal with, you know.
Just diverse a little bit, and I know you're probably going to kill me now, but just the backstory. How did you end up going into psychotherapy and counselling and stuff like that? So just take us back for a couple of seconds. What made you go into that field of work?
Well, I was sexually abused as a child, and as I grew up, one of my biggest things that I wanted was to see somebody else that it happened to. And because of the times we lived in, and I didn't say anything to anybody until I was an adult, it became like desperate for me to see other people. So I was attending the HSE in therapy, and I kept saying this to them. So they said, why don't you set up a group? And I was going, me, set up a group? Are you mad? No, I couldn't do that. So I didn't have the courage. And eventually I did set up a group. A friend of mine helped me, and the two of us set up a group. And that's how I started. I was once I got to see somebody else, it clicked something in my brain. And I just knew in my soul, I could help a lot of people. I just knew that. And that started me on the journey then. I did some training with the Rape Crisis Centre and relationship stuff, all that, because of the relationship with yourself being so important. That's where I started, really, was on the relationship with myself, and it grew from there.
Brilliant. I'm just trying to mute somebody in the chat room, and it's not letting me mute her microphone. So Gillian, if you're watching, can you mute your microphone? That would be great. As loads more people joining us here. So that was your turning point.
Yeah,
to go
that was my turning point.
Training. So now here you are and you're doing this training. So I just wanted people to know your own story, because you were quite shy as a child when all this was happening. You were quite shy as an adult. And then you started to speak and see others. And then you decided to go into, you know, this line of work to help many others. And I know you do that, and you do that exceptionally well. So talk to us a little bit about courage. So you had to think about your stories around courage, and I'm excited for other people to hear you share that.
So when, like, as I was thinking to myself about my stories of courage, I was going, oh, right, yeah. And the stories started flooding back into my mind, because I didn't actually give credence to the amount of stuff I have overcome in my life. I honestly didn't, because I just get on with it, I suppose, you know, and I got used to being strong. but I had to come from a very, very deep place in myself. And I have a will in me that I will not let anybody keep me down. I won't do that. I just will not do that. I just won't do it. And I'm not saying that that's easy to do. It's easier now because I have a lot of tools that I use for myself to get me through situations. But the first thing that I had to do for myself on courage was I had to come to terms with my story. And for me to come to terms with my story was very, very difficult because I felt so much shame. And I was also concerned about, would my story affect you, and would it affect you, and you mightn't like it and you might get upset. And I was more worried about what other people said and felt than I was about myself. And then one day I said to myself, do you know what? I'm going to be stuck for the rest of my life if I do not look at me and say, this is my story. And if you are affected by my story, it's none of my business. Like, that
You're
was none
talking
of my
about
business.
when you started to share your stories, because you, for anybody who doesn't know, Gabrielle shares a lot of her story in order to help others on her social media, on her business page. Is this when you're talking about that? So sometimes,
No, it's when I'm talking about that, when I came out first and said what happened to me.
okay,
And then people were like, oh, wow, you know, and because of some of the incidences that happens in abuse, the shame of that is what keeps you stuck, because we become ashamed of ourselves instead of ashamed of what happened. And the shame doesn't actually even belong to us. It
yeah,
belongs to whoever the perpetrator is, but we take it on board. And that's what I did. And I couldn't give myself a voice because the stuff that I needed to talk about, I found was horrific. And I kept that there. But what happened to me was, because I wasn't speaking about it, I got sick. Do you know, I got sick physically, and that's the way I was for years. And it affected my mental health so, so much. You know, I remember going through a time that I was on uppers and downers, and it was like I was on a tablet to bring me up during the day. I was on a tablet to relax me at nighttime. I was on anxiety tablets. I was on stomach tablets. I was on that many tablets. I was rattling on the inside,
yeah.
you know, and I knew I couldn't stay like that. I knew, because one of my concerns was my kids. You know, I didn't want them to have a mother that was doped out of her head. And because of my kids, and I wanted to break the cycle. You know, that came up in me very strong, that I wanted to break the cycle. And I knew that if I was to break the cycle, I was going to have to literally start standing strong.
Yeah, and
And
speaking out, there's a lot to be
yeah,
said when we release. So tell us about when you found your courage to release what you were holding down.
I found that was difficult. There is no doubt about it. I found that was difficult, but I felt so empowered. I really felt so empowered. Now, when I started to talk about it in the beginning, I was like, you know, this happened, and I was very quiet, and I would always keep my eyes down. And I walked all the time against a wall with my eyes down. I used to count the lines on the footpath because I couldn't look anybody in the eye. You know, I couldn't. And I had to start changing things one thing at a time. And I had to literally practice looking up. If I said hello to you, I would have to practice to look you in the eye, you know, things like that. I didn't straight away go into huge things of courage. I did small things, you know. And I remember one of the things that really helped me shift was I got this revelation of, if it was okay to do it, it's okay to say it. And that is what keeps so many of us stuck. We don't know that. And what I mean by that is if you think that it's okay to treat me in a bad way, well, then I'm going to make it okay for me to say it. Because if people knew what you were doing, you wouldn't be doing it, because all this stuff happens in secret.
Yeah.
So would you do this in public? No, you wouldn't. And when I got, even I can feel it even coming up in me now in my belly. Like, I remember it so clearly, that revelation coming to me, Amanda. And it was like, wow, if it was okay to do it, it's okay to say it. And I was like, that's it. That's it. And then I was in therapy for a year and a half and I didn't speak. And I went every single Thursday and I sat there and I said nothing and she made me tea and she got on with her work. And when I got that revelation, I started to speak. She was a saint. Her name was Neve French. I'll remember her forever. But I started to speak and I started to give myself a voice. That was my first tip of courage. You know, when you get the revelation of if it's okay to do it, then it's okay to say it. And for me, that was the start. And I followed on then and I learned about the 3 A's, I call them. And it's about the awareness, the acceptance, and the action. So when you become aware that you have a situation in your life that needs to be dealt with, that's where it's like it can be difficult to say, okay, I need to do something about this, but you will only do something about it when you accept it. And I didn't like a lot of the things that I accepted. I didn't like it. And I learned also you don't have to like what you accept, you know, but if it's true for you, then it's true. So when I was accepting my stuff, I wasn't speaking at that point. I had to do some work on me. And that took courage for me, to be honest. And then I was able to put the action into it. And that was when I started to speak. And I practiced that in my life, even up to today. The 3 A's. If I have a situation going on in my life and I need to deal with it, then I always go back to the 3 A's, the awareness, the acceptance, and the action. And
Can
I
you
do that.
describe for people who've never, I say they're still in slumber, they don't really understand what these mean. What would be awareness? So give us an example or a story around awareness, something that you're not aware of and then you become aware of.
Okay, so for me, it was like I was uncomfortable and I didn't know what it was. I knew I was very jittery. I was a very nervous person. And if anyone came up behind me, I would jump out of my skin. Now, that would still happen to me today, but I know that it's not danger. But I didn't know where that came from. But I was aware that if you came up behind me, I would I would literally jump. So I started to look at that and I was saying, what's that about? I had no idea. And then the memory started to come in of what it was. So that's when the awareness starts to come, you know,
Yeah.
and that can be a very, very scary place to be for people. And that's why when I'm working with people, you have to be very, very gentle, you know, and you have to be careful if you're letting somebody out in front of a wheel of a car, you know, that they're responsible. So it's very, very intense, but gentle work, you know, because
So you understand feelings, then you look at what's causing the feelings and then you're aware of it. So
yeah,
talk to us then a little bit about acceptance. This is the harder one, I think, is it?
yeah. So when you become aware and you can see the story, you know, and what happens is we can go into denial very, very easily because we say, no, I'm imagining that. Sure, that can't happen. I actually thought I had a dream that something happened to me. It was so vivid. It was like a colorful dream. And I was going, Jeannie, that was some weird dream, but it wasn't a dream. You know, it wasn't a dream. Different things started to come. And when I looked at what was coming into my mind and looked at my behavior, I was going, that's why I'm like that. And that's why I'm like that. Because I was a fierce people pleaser. You know, I would do anything for a quiet life. And I just could not look at confrontation whatsoever. I couldn't go into a confrontation. So I accepted a lot of crap in my life, you know, because first of all, I didn't think that anyone would listen, you know, or I could change anything. I didn't have the confidence to change it. And I was so busy on working on my inside stuff that I let a lot of things go on the outside that I probably shouldn't have.
Yeah.
And I kept going back then and saying, you need to accept this, you need to accept this. And I did it like a mantra in my head. I'm accepting this. And I looked up a lot of stuff on acceptance, books and stuff that was out at the time, you know.
Mm.
And I looked over them. And when I got to the acceptance, and only when I got through the acceptance, I had the courage then to do the action. but it can take a long time. There's no time limit, you know?
Yeah. I always say we're all different and each situation is different.
Yeah.
So what would action look like then for what you described there? What was the courage? What was the action taken?
The action for me was to actually, when I went into my therapy session then at that time, was to actually say, I got it.
To
So
speak.
it's to speak, yeah, to give yourself the voice. And for me, I had an issue with my voice, and I would have always suffered with my throat. I'd always have got a sore throat. And a lot of it was for some reason around Christmas time that I'd be sick, and it was always here in my throat. But then I realized I didn't like, I used to say, I hate my voice. I hate my voice. But I actually didn't hate my voice. I just didn't like what I needed to say.
Makes
Do you know,
perfect.
and that was the difference. I didn't
Choked
know.
with it. It was up to here. You were choked with it.
Yeah, I was sick. I was just sick. I was just so sick. And I didn't like what I had to say. And that was what it was. It wasn't that I hated my voice. I just didn't like what I needed to say. And I knew I was going to upset people by saying what I needed to say. But I had to eventually then put that to bed for a certain degree and know that if I didn't start standing up and speaking up, I was going to die.
Yeah.
Because of what I needed to speak about and because of the circumstance I was living in as well, because I was accepting so much crap, you
Yeah.
know,
That brings you
at
on
the
to our
time.
next story. So you did speak, and we were
I
talking
did.
about this earlier on, and you spoke up to somebody and you started to have the courage to change other things in your life. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So I was married and I had my kids, and there was a lot of not nice things happening in that relationship. And like when I tell you the courage it took for me to do this, it was incredible. And I kept going back the whole time to, if it's okay to do it, then it's okay to say it. And I was afraid of the anger that would come, you know, the outbursts that would come from the person that I was married to. So I remember I was in my kitchen and we had a 50 pence table. It was very clear. And I had said, this is not happening anymore. I'm not accepting this behavior anymore. And this marriage is over. And I didn't know half the stuff that was going on in that marriage. You know, I didn't know it until afterwards. So he got into a panic and tried everything for me to stay. And I said, no, I know I'm going. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know how I was going to go, but I just knew I was going. And my thing, like I said a few minutes ago, was my children as well, because I wanted to break the cycle for them. And I knew it was going, if it was to change, it was going to be coming from me, you know? So I remember one day he came in and he was on his physical knees with flowers in his hand, begging me to not leave. And I said no. Because you see, that's the thing about me, Amanda. I will give you so many chances to change and listen to me and do all that kind of stuff. And if you don't do it, when I say no, my no is no. There is no going back. And it makes no difference to me whether you're lying prostrate on the ground or like he was on his physical knees with flowers. If you tell me you're going to hang yourself, no. My no is no. You've had plenty of chances. And I have to live for me.
And that's where you find your strength when you've
And
made that decision, when you've
yeah, and it
decided.
takes me ages to get to the no. But when I get to no, like that, I even feel that coming up in my belly, like, no,
No means
no.
no,
It's,
no go.
yeah, that's it. There's no going back. And I didn't. And it was extremely difficult. But what it turned out then that I found out a lot more stuff in the relationship that was going on. And so one of them was an affair. So I had a nervous breakdown and I was in hospital. And this girl used to ring me in the hospital and tell me about my house, how lovely my house was, and I should be an interior designer. And she loved this in my house and that in my house. And um, because at the time, you see, there was no mobile phones. So it was a box on the wall, you know, the way the phone was on the wall, and then another patient would come and they would say, "You're wanted on the phone." So I would go, and a few times it was her, and now sometimes it was my kids, but it was her a lot of the time. And because of the severity of what had happened in my marriage, I did have a nervous breakdown. So for her to do that, I think was severe, you know.
Did you find out that she was having an affair after the fact when you got home?
No, I found out just before I had the nervous breakdown.
Right.
And like, that was awful, you know, it was awful. And so when I was coming home from St. Bridget's, I knew I was going to see her. I knew, and when I was in the hospital, I remember, like, there was a nurse each side of me. I couldn't walk, I couldn't put my feet under me, and they were bringing me in to see the psychiatrist. And I remember him saying to me, "Amanda, she's gone over the edge." And for a split second, I remember lifting my head and I said, "I'm coming back."
Wah, fight and talk. Yes.
Yeah, I'm coming back. And then I was gone again. And I literally walked like this. One was on each arm, bringing me back to bed. And the funny thing was, behind my bed, there was a small window with loads of bars in it, you know, because you couldn't get out. It was up high. And I knew in that moment, when I looked at that, I was in a prison in my mind. And I was saying, right, you need to just get a grip now, start accepting this. I didn't want to take the medication because I was embarrassed. And I knew I had to get myself out of prison. So for my freedom, I needed to go and confront this girl. And I did. And that took bottles of courage. Bottles of courage.
Everybody's rooting for you. I can see everybody's face like, yes, yes.
So, and the funny thing was, as fearful as I was, when I went and confronted her, she was shaking in her boots.
And that's not something we imagine when we're in fear.
No. And I was at home saying, "Okay, you're grand, you can do this." I was doing my breathing, I was doing all that kind of stuff. And I got outside the door and I went, I blew it out. And I walked in there as if I was a queen. I walked in and I put my clothes on, nice clothes, before I went. And I sat down as calm as anything. And I said to her, "I need to have a conversation with you." And I rarely shout. But I remember I leaned over the table because she was at one side of the table and I was at the other. And my opening sentence to her was, "How dare you?" And she was really taken aback. And I said, "How dare you enter my home?" That was the first thing that I said to her. And she was really taken aback, and she was trying to come back and say, "Oh, you're lovely. I didn't think you were this nice. He didn't speak of you. He told me this." I said, "I'm not here to talk about him. I'm here to talk about you. And how dare you?" And I remember saying that so long, for like a few minutes. It was like ages. And I was going, "How dare you come into my home? My children were in bed. How dare you do that? How dare you think that it's okay to treat somebody like that?" And I just went on. And after a few minutes, I got up and I walked out that door, and I was 7 foot tall.
Yeah.
And that was the action that I started to take in my life. That was empowerment. I didn't have that word at the time.
Yeah.
I felt really strong. And I walked home and I went, "That is it now. This is the start of your journey to come back and to be who you were meant to be in this life." And that's what I did. That's where I started. But there was obviously like loads more that had to happen before I got to where I am today. But that was where I started, by giving myself the voice and saying, it's okay, if it's okay to do it. And then I have my other little saying that I say, "Courage is fear that has said its prayers."
Yeah,
and because I do have an awesome relationship with God, he carries me through an awful lot of stuff, you know. And I wouldn't be here if I didn't have a relationship with God, and that's the truth, because he has rescued me. literally, he rescued me and brought me to a life that I never even dreamed about. You know, I never dreamed that the business would come about. It was always in my heart that I wanted to help people. And I helped people for years, but quietly. I didn't tell anybody, you know, and I loved that when I seen people getting results. And then it wasn't until we went to We Can and We Will, and it escalated.
I got to share this story. This is a great story of courage again, Gabrielle. Gabrielle, myself and Gabrielle met at one of Nicola's events, and we didn't know each other. That's another story. We will share that.
Yeah.
It's a random story of how we were drawn to each other. And we became pals on the phone. We didn't really know each other that well. So anyway, like a lot of people in the community, Gabrielle came to her very first We Can and We Will talk. And it was the very first night that I had decided to do an open mic. So anybody could leave their business card in the bowl and we'd pull out the names. And if you got pulled out, then it was your turn to speak.
And Barry actually was there that night, and he was saying to me, your name's going to be pulled out. And I'm going, no, it isn't. He said, I'm telling you it is. And I'm going, no, it's not. And then I was going, oh, what if he's right? Oh, man. And then it was.
So Barry is Gabrielle's son. So I pull out Gabrielle's name and I went down to her. I'll never forget it. It's like it was yesterday. I walked down to the seats and I said, Gabrielle, what would you like to speak about? Do you want me to interview you or do you want to just share? She goes, oh no, you can interview me. And I said, look, the topic is up to you. And she was, and Barry nudged you. Barry's our adult son who's on here with us. And he nudged her and he said, talk about your nervous breakdown, Ma. I said, oh, you don't have to if you don't want to. Oh, she said, if I am, I am. I'll tell the whole story. And up she came into her chair and the story started to unravel, not unsimilar to what you've shared here today. But right at the end, go on, you finish it. She starts to tell us she's a business. I'm like that looking at her going, you what? You never told me. Not that we weren't friends that long. But I was like totally in shock that evening. So go on, tell us.
So after I had done my own work, I had to do a lot of work on myself. And then I started to train. And I trained in relationship counseling. I did the Rape Crisis Center. I did the logo synthesis stuff. I did a lot of self stuff training. And I then went, started printing my business cards. And then I got the business cards and I threw them in the bin because I was going, no one's going to come. Nobody's going to come. Nobody is going to come. And I looked at them and I thought they were lovely. And I just put them in the bin. I just didn't have that confidence or courage to publicly say, this is what I do. And I didn't believe in myself still enough, you know. And so actually it was in the car on the way up that night that Nicola discovered as well that I was professionally trained. And she was like, how do we not know this? How do we not know this? But I didn't tell anybody. That's why, you know. And when after that, then I started to come out and say, this is what I do. And
but it's funny, I've just got the irony of this here. So what we've spoke about earlier on is about the courage when we actually speak. And that night you publicly in front of an audience of what, 60 people?
Yeah.
I have a business that's called Turning Point.
Yeah.
So it's amazing that when we get the courage to actually speak it, what we speak about, we bring about.
We do, yeah. And that's why I called my business Turning Point, because I had a big turning point in my life. And I wanted to call it Turning Point because my turning point can become your turning point, you know, because I get you. When you walk in my door, I totally get you and I hold you in that safe space. And I know that. And you get to know that as well, you know. So I love it. I just love the name. So I changed my business cards, got them done after that time, and stood up and said, yeah, this is me. This is who I am. You know, this is me. And, you know, that was even courage to accept me on a professional level, because I was told.
I know. I remember the calls. Gabrielle get a light bulb moment and she'd say, I get it. I see my worth. I get it. And you know,
Yeah,
as a coach and as a mentor and as a friend, they would just make me as happy as you because it was like,
yeah,
oh my God. And every time it was like a revelation. It was like, I get it now. I get it now. I get it now. I
mm,
see it now. I feel it now.
yeah. And you see, I would never say that I had low self-esteem. I would say I had none. It was on the floor. I didn't have anything. And because I was told so much stuff about you'll never be any use to anybody, you're no good, you know, all the stuff that we're told, I actually took that on board so much. And then for me to undo that was like the unraveling was difficult. And I stood back and I looked at myself and I started saying, well, you did this and you did this and you did this. So I started to compare, do you know?
Yeah.
And on one list of all my achievements, I had a lot more of achievements than I had put downs,
Yeah.
you know? So I would bring it and I do the opposite.
Look at
And
your
I would go, absolutely not keeping me down. No way, I'm not allowing anybody to keep me down. I'm here for a reason. And my reason on this earth is to help other people. So that's me. I'm up and I'm out and I don't care what comes against me. Yes, I struggle with challenges. Yes, I still have bouts of anxiety. I will not allow it to keep me down anymore. Life's too short. Life is too
roar of
short.
the lion, the roar of the
Yeah,
lion.
I just really, life is too short. No way. No, absolutely no way. You knock yourself out trying to keep me back, but you're not going to. You're
Amazing.
not going to. And that's just it. I'll still get up. I will still get up. I will rise up. I will rise up. You
Amen.
know,
Amen.
no
Dear
way.
me.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask anybody here, and there's comments coming in, I'm going to read them. But if you have a question for Gabrielle, raise your hand. And in the meantime, I'm just going to read it. So Melody says, you're just amazing. Olivia says, what an amazing lady. And Katrina says, I can so relate to this a lot, what you are saying. And
Brilliant.
another one then, talk about a gutsy lady, says Alice. And Barbara said, oh my God, I'm feeling very emotional listening to you. You're so brave and courageous. I was the same with the sore throats, not being able
Yeah.
to voice what I needed to say. So thank you for sharing. So beautiful comments in there. So let me just see. Oh, Sinead D has a question for you. I'm just going to unmute you, Sinead. Let me see. You see, this is where I need the old glasses. There's Sinead D, is there? Okay, unmute.
Okay.
You are live, Sinead.
Hello.
Gabrielle, wow. Just wow. Okay.
Thank you.
I have a question for you for women who are watching this now, who may be in a similar position. I've had 3 people in my same, and lots more people like that have a history of abuse. And when I worked as a nurse and in my work now, sometimes people open up, but they're afraid to go any further. But I have had 3 separate women whose partners or husbands, whatever, attempted suicide. One successful, one unsuccessful, and the damage that has like, I guess, caused them. Okay, what would you tell those women to do now if it is still causing, you know, if they haven't done any work? Or, I mean, I think go and see you, obviously, but what would you tell them in a moment now watching you? What would you say to them?
Well, what I would say to them people is if somebody takes their life, that's their choice. They're choosing to do it for whatever reason. They are choosing to do it. But because we are coming from, say, a codependent place in ourselves, we want to rescue them, but we also become over responsible and we think if it wasn't for me, they wouldn't do it. So I would say, come back into yourself. This is not easy stuff now, Sinead. You know, it sounds easy to do, but it's not. Keep bringing it back to you and know that you cannot control another person's behavior. You cannot control what another person says to you, but you can just come back to you and say, do I deserve this? Is this something that I really should carry, could carry, and want to carry? Because it's not yours. That's their journey in life, and that's their relationship with their God, universe, whatever it is. And your journey is something else. But as long as you're looking out and saying, oh, he did that because of me or whatever. No, he didn't. He did that because of his own issues, and you are highlighting it, and you're right, because domestic violence on any level is not okay. Bullying is not okay. And sometimes people end their lives because they don't want to face the fear of what it would be like to change, you know. So for me, I always say, feel the fear and do it anyway. You know, feel it, do it afraid, just do it afraid. And we're always going to have fear in our lives of something, but that's where our courage, we have to dig deep, go into our boots and get that courage up and stop taking the responsibility for someone else's behavior, because it just keeps you stuck. You know, set yourself free, because the prisons and the thoughts that we're telling ourselves, we keep ourselves prisoners. Like I was saying about when I was in hospital and I physically seen the bars, the greatest prison we have is in our mind. You know, our minds is our prison. So don't let what someone else, because like when I was married, he was saying to me, I'm going to commit suicide. I had to say to him, if that's what you're going to do, then that's your choice. No, he never did it. However, he told me the story of how he was planning it, what he was going to do. I was going to come home and find him hanging and all this kind of stuff. And I said, well, if that's what has to be, that's what has to be. You know, now I was shaking in my boots saying it, and I was hoping it wasn't going to happen. But when they see you have changed, there's a line drawn in the sand, literally there, Sinead. So if they can reach out and just say, you know, I need help, is the beginning of everything, you know, and it's not their responsibility. The only one that they can help is themselves, you know. That's hard.
Help is ourselves, isn't it?
I think the power, can I still talk?
Yep.
Sorry. I think, like, for me to, you know, to say that to people, and I can look from the outside, but I think the difference between me and you is that you've had the experience, and I'm watching you and I'm thinking, oh my God, if I was in that position, I would want that, like you're saying, you want to talk to someone who's been in the same position. I just think what you do is phenomenal. I really, really do.
Thank you.
I hope people see this and go and see you.
Yeah. And like, it's very, very difficult to breathe into that fear, because if somebody's saying to you, oh, I'm going to commit suicide, that's trying to control you, and that's to get you back in your box and keep that fear in you. Well, if I do this, he's going to do that, or she's going to do that. And we have to call their bluff. We have to, because I'm only responsible for living my life. The consequences of your behavior is yours. And I find that difficult even today, to allow people the consequences of their behavior sometimes. And then I have to remember, no, what are you doing? What are you doing? And then I keep bringing it back all the time. And I keep saying, do this afraid, do this afraid. You've done it before, and I can do it again. Fantastic. So I hope that's helpful.
Great question, Sinead. Great question. Has anybody else got a question there before we finish it up? Anybody else raising their hands? No. Just making sure it's not my eyesight. I don't miss anybody. No, I'm just going to mute Sinead there. Gabrielle, that was incredible. You know that anyway. I'm a Raven fan. I'm absolutely in awe of your strength and your courage. And I suppose, as Sinead just said there, your ability to help others to go through that with true empathy. And I won't say sympathy, because I know you don't sympathize, you empathize, and then you give them the move on. And it takes a very special and a very strong lady to be able to do what you do, having been where you've been. But no better person to do that than somebody who has been through so much. And I know right now you're going through your own challenges, and you're still using the same methods. You're still walking your talk, lady.
Yes. Yeah.
You continue to walk your talk.
Yeah. I have to be true to myself. Yeah, I have to be. You know, I have to be, because I've come through too much. I cannot live a lie, and I won't live a lie, you know, and regardless, and it doesn't mean that it's easy what I'm going through at the minute, but just makes me stand up more, because I know I can do it, and I know I will come out the other end of this as well. I know it.
Yeah. So how
And
can people get in touch with you, Gabrielle? And what way are you operating your business now because of what's happened?
Well, obviously, because of what's happening, I'm doing a good bit online. I do Zoom or Skype.
Yeah.
I have my website, and my Facebook page is there as well. So you can private message me on any of them, on
Yes.
the Facebook page or on the website.
Turning Point count. What's the name of your? You can
Coaching.
put it in the comments below in the live video. Yeah.
Yeah. Turning Point Coaching and Counselling. Or just look me up on Facebook, Gabrielle Collins, and you will get to Turning Point through there, and just send me a private message. But I'm just doing some Skype more, I suppose, really, than physical at the moment. But I will be back doing physical.
Of course,
I will be back. Yeah.
You'll all be back. And do you feel, just because I know this is a thought that people might have right now, do you feel that this work can be done or have you had success doing it online with people?
Yes. The thing about doing it online is I have to be very careful. So we won't, it's a slow process. It's not something that you're going to go through very quickly. So you need to know that before you start, that you need to be patient and gentle with yourself, you know, because what needs to come out, you're going to not like it maybe, and it's going to, you know, I always say it's like putting on new clothes. It's just not comfortable. You know, if you're used to being in your tracksuit and then you're putting on your jeans, you know, you get uncomfortable. But you get uncomfortable to get comfortable, you know, because there's so much in you that you haven't even tapped into, because you're blocked with this stuff. And our energy needs to be flowing, you know, because that's the way it works. We're either in flow or we're stuck. So you're either a nice little stream or you're a stagnant pool. Until you get your stuff out.
I just see Elaine here has a question for you, so I'm just going to unmute Elaine. And there you go, Elaine. You have the floor.
Hi, Amanda. Hi, Gabrielle. And no,
hi, Elaine.
I'm thinking that what you're saying resonates at so many levels with so many people for different issues. And I think part of your work could be with young people, finding their own voice and understanding that they are here to live their own lives.
Yeah.
Friends' lives or what they're looking at, that they're here on their own journey and they have a voice that is beautiful, that needs to be heard, and to have the courage to come from a place within, because they've been so bombarded with all these images.
Yeah.
They need to be, and I think that it's an area of work with what you're saying that resonates on so many levels, just on the point of courage and on the point of listening to that voice within yourself and recognizing it as fear or me, you know.
Yeah. And like, we need, if we can get more young people, for them to know that it's okay to be me in whatever form I am in, then we are going to save an awful lot of adults sitting in therapy rooms later on, when maybe they have children of their own and they're affected. So it's about breaking the cycle. And if the younger we can get people in, the better, you know, because we're saving before a relationship begins, and we're saving future generations, you know, by telling them it's okay to be you and your voice matters. Because an awful lot of us don't realize how much we matter until we, you know, I always think, like, you know, if you go to a funeral and you hear people talking and saying, oh, he was great and she was great and he did this and she did that. Why do we not say that to people when they're alive? Do you know, why wait until something tragic happens? And young people, there's an awful lot of young people with suicide because they don't have the voice. They don't know that it's okay. So that's something that is very close to my heart. If somebody had been there and said, it's okay. And even if, like, if I didn't, like when I did go into mine and I didn't speak, but I knew she was there every Thursday. And that's what an awful lot of the younger people need, something steady. Because the social media is just changing and everyone's on their best face on social media, you know.
They don't understand how to listen to their voice.
Mm.
They don't understand how just to listen
And
to me.
that's what I spoke about earlier. It's not that I didn't like my voice. I didn't like what my voice needed to say. So it's to try and get that through to them. And this too will pass. You know, it's only going to be for a short term if you look at your lifespan, but it'll give you a far, far better life and a greater life if you just even say to one person, I need help. And if it's a young person, let the parent then contact us, you know, and say, I have somebody that's struggling, you know, and then I take it from there, you know. So there's lots of ways. Sometimes we just need a hand to hold, you know.
Well, do you know what? Thanks, Elaine, for that. I believe that this conversation today is probably, anybody watching this, it's opened up, I'd say, a lot more conversations. It's helped to create that awareness. And sometimes that is, you know, when we're asleep and we're not aware of stuff. You've touched on so much today, you know, and I'd say not even just in the area of abuse and stuff, but and a lot of people have said it here in the comments, you can see that thread in our young ones in different situations. So it's not just always about
so much anxiety.
Yeah, it's not just about the relationship with the other person. This is very much down to the relationship
with yourself. Yeah.
So we need to look inside. We need to look at ourselves, take responsibility for our own thoughts, our own actions, our own behaviors first and foremost. And as Gabrielle rightly said, and I'm going to resonate it again as we wrap up, we are not responsible. You are not responsible for anybody else other than yourself. And I think our younger next generation really get that. You know, they really get to accept themselves, love themselves, and take responsibility for themselves. To be a better place going forward.
Yeah. And it's breaking the cycle.
Yeah.
You know, it's really break that cycle for the young people coming up, you know, because when we're better, we do better, you know.
We know better, we do better. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what's after happening today. We've talked about a lot of topics, a lot of subjects. We've created awareness now. And once you see something, you can't unsee it.
You can't unsee it. So, and that's why it's so important to say to yourself, right, do it afraid. What's the worst thing that can happen to me?
Yeah. And if they do need help, Gabrielle is there. Or you can contact myself and I can put you in touch with Gabrielle or whatever help you need. We have a huge network with We Can and We Will. A lot of experts, a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience between the whole group. So there's a lot of help out there. So never be afraid to raise your hand and ask.
Yeah, and don't suffer alone. We don't have to suffer alone. When we're suffering alone, we're choosing it again and we're isolating ourselves and we're only condoning then what has happened, you know, because you can't change what you don't acknowledge. Yeah, you have to. You have to acknowledge it to change it.
Yeah,
you know, because you can't change what you don't acknowledge, you know.
Okay, we're going to wrap it up here on Facebook. So thank you so much, Gabrielle.
Thank you. And thank you for all the comments.
I'm just going to knock it off here. We're going to close down on Facebook. Stop.